Hey everybody, it's Mike. I'm back, and I got a lot to talk about. I got all kinds of things to talk about. Um, so we get right into it. I'm going to go ahead and just do the opening, and let's see. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so so the first thing I want to say is, of course, I am not a cult expert. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in anything. Definitely not an expert in cults. But what I am an expert in is I'm an expert in my experiences with a cult. The other thing I want to say before I get into that is people that were born into the Hare Krishna cult or born into any cult, they definitely have a different perspective and a different take on the whole cult experience. They're born into it. They didn't go into it as a non-cult member and then become a cult member. They were born into it. They don't know anything else. So they have a unique take on the cult. But I wouldn't say that their take or their view or their understanding or their experience is somehow the ultimate and is somehow more important or more anything than someone who was not born into a cult. So while I respect everyone's experience in a cult, some people join a cult, especially the Hare Krishnas. People join the Hare Krishnas. They get into it really quickly. A lot of times, within a few, sometimes overnight, a couple days, a week, a month, they're in. It's heavy duty brainwashing, heavy duty manipulation, heavy duty emotional and spiritual and every kind of mental manipulation there is. Love bombing, just every cult technique is used in the Hare Krishna cult. Love bombing and telling you that your family is not really your family, to shun your family, isolationism, or whatever you want to call it, shunning, isolation, telling you you shouldn't read media or other books that are not written by the founder, not authorized, because everything else is just speculation. Nobody really knows. So why would you take somebody else's word? Encouraging you to move in to the commune, into the community, into where you can be used for something. Your labor can be used, exploited. So these things these are all things that the cult does that manipulates people. But the people that are born into it, they don't go through a lot of this mental manipulation. I mean, they go through it growing up. They grow up in it. From a little kid, they don't know anything else. They don't know anything else. Those of us that have joined a cult, we went in not expecting what happened, and experience, everybody experiences different. Some people join and they leave after 6 months or a year or 2 years, never to return. They weren't abused. They weren't they weren't physically abused or sexually abused. They don't know of all the crimes. They don't know of all the abuses that go on. They don't know about the child abuse and the murders. They don't know any of that. That just wasn't for them. So they have a whole different experience. Everybody has their own experience. So I believe that the children, the people that were born in and grew up in it, they suffer. I believe they suffered the most, but I don't think that's exclusive, that every one of them suffered the most and that they have some exclusivity on trauma or their experience or their understanding or any of that. Everybody's different. There's a lot of kids that grow up in cults and they're still in it. There's a lot of kids that grow up in Hare Krishnas, they're still Hare Krishnas. And they were traumatized and they were abused, but they're still in it. They haven't left. There's a lot of people in it that haven't been abused yet. They will be. Or they are being abused. They're being exploited. They don't realize it yet. They haven't been abused yet. Or maybe they are and they don't realize it. A lot of women go through abuse in the Hare Krishnas. They don't know it because they're being taught, just accept it. Women can be smacked around a little bit. Women are less intelligent. So if your husband has to smack you around, then you probably deserved it. And that's what they think. But if you were born in that and you grow up in that, that's one experience. But if you come from the outside in and they totally mush your brain up, where grown men are coming in who weren't racist, who weren't sexist, go in there and they become racist and sexist, just like people join the army, join the Marines. They're not. And then they go through the boot camp, they go through the whole thing, maybe go serve somewhere. They're a different person. They're different. They're a different person. The cult these cults are really good at brainwashing people and changing people. You don't have to be born into it to be completely abused and used and traumatized and beat down and emotionally beat down and spiritually beat down and physically beat. You don't have to be born into it to go through that. You don't have. It's not an exclusive thing being born into a cult, whether it's Scientology, Hare Krishna, Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, Rajneesh, but it doesn't matter. A lot of kids are born into that, and I feel really bad for those kids that were born into it. I mean, that's just horrible. I brought my daughter into it, but when my daughter said, "Hey, Dad, I don't want to get into it," I was like, I was disappointed because we were totally into it, but I was like, okay. I didn't ship her off to a boarding school. I didn't send her to India, marry her off to some guy. I wasn't like that. I just said, okay, well, okay. So I could have been like a weird, Hare Krishna guy to marry my daughter off at 11 years old, off to some guy, some grown man, so he could take her to India and who knows what. That's what, and these women that join, and they're all enamored with some guru, and they join, and they're all dancing around, all happy. I see it on the internet all the time. And then one day the guru says, hey, I want you to marry this guy. You're not married. You need to be married. I got to marry this guy? Yes. For Krishna, for me, your guru. So now she's got to marry some guy and go off to India or to wherever and act like she's happy for the rest of her life while he's smacking her around and who knows what. And then when they decide they don't want to be married anymore, they just leave their wives and they go off and they play Hare Krishna somewhere. This is an abusive cult towards women. This is how they treat women. And Prabhupada encouraged it. Prabhupada encouraged that type of behavior with women. Just marry them off to whoever needs a wife, because you can't be a brahmachari or you can't be a sannyasi. So I got all these young women, these girls, just pick one. I'll marry you off to some girl. And then 3-4 years later, he comes back, I don't want to be married anymore. I don't like my wife. Oh, okay. Divorce your wife and go to India and preach or go to South America and go preach and and then they go do that. And then a couple years later, they come back and they go, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to get married again. I mean, what the hell? That's what this, or who knows what they're doing behind everyone's back. These guys with the young girls and the little girls and the boys and all kinds of stuff. That's what this cult is. I gotta play this thing. It's a it's a podcast, but it's just the trailer for the podcast, but it'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about.
Lokanath abused a girl like 30 plus years ago, and it's just as much about the abuse as it is about the cover up. His abuse was covered up by the GBC like half a dozen times. And anytime he was supposedly punished, like he was suspended from being a guru outside of India for like X amount of years. It was secret. Like all of this was hush hush. So it was a huge cover up, and all of us campaigned to have Lokanath's case handled by the ISKCON Child Protection Office, because this was the key point in our campaign. Was Lokanath's case was the only case in ISKCON's history that has never been handled by the ISKCON Child Protection Office. And you know why? Because they would place restrictions on him. He wouldn't be able to be a guru. He probably wouldn't be able to be a leader in ISKCON. And everyone who was sheltering him and covering him up in leadership positions, they wanted him to be a guru. They wanted him to be a leader. So they blocked his case from being handled by the ISKCON Child Protection Office, their own agency, which is mandated to handle all child abuse cases in ISKCON. They said, oh, yeah, don't touch this case. There's so much hypocrisy and like mishandling and corruption, and all these documents, don't share, confidential, please destroy this document after you read it. And the ISKCON public at large, they should know you want Lokanath Swami as your guru? Like, by the way, he's a child molester. You should know this.
Yeah. They have a right to know.
Yeah.
why do you think there are so many people who still support him?
Because people have cognitive dissonance. They've already formed an attachment to someone, they've established a relationship, and they only see that person as good. So when you present them with facts and you're like, hey, this person has done harm, they can't wrap their head around it. Like it's not in their mind. Like they just can't grasp it. And it's not just with Lokanath, with other child abusers.
Okay, I I I have to say she's right, but not just with people; it's with the whole organization. You've formed an attachment to this ISKCON, to this Krishna cult, and you like going to the temple, and you like. Oh, hey, I'm back. I'm having some internet problems here. So I'm glad. I'm sorry. Anyway, so what I was saying. Hey, first of all, I want to say, hey, good afternoon. Thanks for joining. And hey, how you doing from North Germany? Thanks for joining here. So I believe what I was saying was people not only they have cognitive dissonance, but not only for people. They have an attachment for a person, and then when you hear that the person did something bad, you go, well, I still like the person even though they did something that I don't like, and I'm just going to try not to think about it. They do that with the institution itself, the cult itself. So you hear that the cult doesn't care about children. Mass children were abused. Women are abused. The cult is racist. The founder had sex with an 11-year-old girl when he was 22 years old, and then he put in his books that 11 years old is the perfect age for wives, for old men, and blacks belong in the jungles, and all of these things that he says. And all of these things that happened, and that he was not a pure devotee, when you hear all these things, because you have this attachment for the cult, put all those things aside. Well, yeah, but the prasadam is so good. And I really like the whole thing, the chanting. I like the music. I like the dancing. I like the whole going to the. But it's a cult. There's nothing good about it. These people are covering it up. The leaders of this cult know that this guy, this Lokanath Swami, was molested this girl, and now she's grown. She's an adult. She spilled the beans. And all of these, they covered it up. They've been covering it up. The Child Protection Office was nothing but a guru protection office. All it did was just protect the gurus. They never brought anybody to justice. Oh, what, they would ban somebody from being a guru? Like they really cared? Like these guys don't care. These guys are scammers and cheaters. You think they care that some organization says, oh, you can't? They don't care. They're basically getting away. They get away with anything they want to do. Little girls, little boys, murdering people, beating people up, banning people, all kinds of stuff. They get away with all of it because they don't have to answer to anybody. Who do they answer to? They orchestrated this whole murder of this one devotee. They had devotees staking him out, going across state lines to murder this guy, coordinating from the temple to the temple. They had him on tape. They're going to pay the guy and fly him to India. It was a whole organized murder, assassination. It was a mob hit. It was a mob hit by these so-called guru guys, these so-called gurus, took this guy out. That's who these people are. Only one guy went to jail. Nobody else went to jail. All those people on the phone with money, staking the guy out, helping the guy get away, buying him plane tickets, flying him here, letting him sleep at this temple, letting him do all these things. Nobody else went to jail. How the fuck does that happen? Seriously, how the fuck does that happen? And this is a friggin', this is not some huge, it's worldwide, but when you talk about worldwide, you know, they got 10 people in London, and they got 10 people in Paris, and they got 10 people in Mexico City, and 10 people in friggin' Denver. Worldwide. This is a tiny little cult that pulls off a whole organized friggin' murder of a devotee and running these schools where they're abusing children, hundreds if not thousands of children abused by these monsters. And one guy goes to jail? Because they're all working together to cover it all up. I couldn't even get the guy that touched my dog. I couldn't even get him in jail. Because the community came out supporting him. They didn't care that he touched my daughter. They were like, no, like, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. He's a friggin' child molester. And I'm wondering why they got child molesters wandering around the community. Because they don't care. If the community cared, this friggin' Padma Garba guy was walking around the community, they'd get rid of him. They don't care. They didn't care that the guy that touched my daughter was in the community. They didn't care about Padma Garba. Who knows who else was in the community? Who knows who else was in the community? And then you go to one of these festivals, friggin' every friggin' pedophile in the movement is there. You don't know who these guys are? Well, you do. Lokanath Swami, Indrayumna Swami, Bhaktivinoda Swami, Bhaktividyapurna Swami. These guys are all covering up. They're either pedophiles or they're covering up for pedophiles. Every single one of them. Every single one of them is either a pedophile or is covering up for them. Because how do you have a $400 million lawsuit? 400 plus kids suing for child abuse and winning. But they don't know who did it. Nobody goes to jail. And then they get the Epstein Island lawyer guy to defend them. Well, of course. He's an Epstein Island, goes and gets massages. He admits he went to Epstein Island, got massages from underage girls, but hey, he kept his underwear on, he says. He's defending the cult in their child abuse lawsuit. I mean, come on, people. They got the Epstein Island lawyer guy defending them in their child sexual abuse lawsuit. You can't make this shit up. You can't make that up. If you wrote that in a script, somebody would say, that's crazy. That they would never do that. They would never cross. Why would a guy who goes to Epstein Island defend? But yeah. And it makes sense. It makes sense now. When he was defending him, we didn't know that he was doing the Epstein Island thing. But now we know he was doing the Epstein Island thing. He was doing the Epstein Island thing while he was defending this friggin' pedophile cult. He's probably going to Epstein Island on his free time from the court, from the trial. Absolutely agree. They're covering all sorts of bullshit. They've been covering bullshit since the beginning. It's what they do. Prabhupada covered up bullshit. Prabhupada was doing snuff behind everybody's back while he's telling them don't eat chocolate or smoke cigarettes. Meanwhile, he's snorting snuff into his brain and then translating. The guy is snorting snuff and then translating his books, having some fucking hallucinatory literary writing session, some ayahuasca type shit. It's a fucking fraud, man. And Hare Krishna is me. We're all thinking, oh, he's a pure devotee. Pure what? They want to make out he was pure from birth, that he was always pure. He's this pure devotee man who never made a mistake, never did anything wrong. And so then they have to justify the fact that he was 22 years old and his wife was 11. So they justify that by saying, yeah, no problem. Ex-Indra Yumna, Brian Tibbet's secretary. You were Brian Tibbet's secretary. So you know just as well as I did. I was never any swamp. Well, I was Yashodanandan's secretary. You could say that. I was definitely his secretary, his assistant. So you were Indra Yumna Swami's secretary. I was Yashodanandan's secretary. So you've heard the same shit I've heard. In fact, I probably heard more shit because Yashodanandan was definitely, he liked to flap his mouth and talk shit about everybody. He liked to gossip and talk about all the shit that he knew and all the shit that he'd been through and all the shit that he'd heard and all everything. And I don't know if Indra Yumna Swami is open with you as Yashodanandan was with me. But maybe he was, but I don't know. Maybe he was, but you would definitely know all the shit. You'd have to. You can't be you can't be that close to these guys and not have that shit like just splatter all over you. I mean, I saw firsthand what kind of person Yashodanandan was. And the whole time I'm thinking, you know, I don't get it. I don't get it. Just like I don't get it with the Indra Swami. Like he is like so open with the little girls and all of that shit. It's like it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, and that's how I felt with Yashoda. It's like you're Yashodanandan Swami or ex-Swami. I don't know what that means. Ex-Swami. You're Yashodanandan Swami. You and Guru Kripa, you're right there with Prabhupada. There's videos of you with Prabhupada. There's pictures of you with Prabhupada. There's lectures. There's conversations in the books with you and Prabhupada. How do you get to the point where you're Yashodanandan Swami and you're doing all these things for Prabhupada? You're right there with him. Right? You've got a pair of his Prabhupada shoes. You've got Prabhupada relics. You've got... And then you fall down, and then you can't even be honest about you. And then you know, I don't want to seem like I'm gossiping about Yashodananda. I don't need to do all of that, but just and I don't. But just his lifestyle after being Yashodanandan Swami. And being right there with Prabhupada, face to face with Prabhupada, just all of that stuff, and then for me to see him, I don't, and I still don't get it. Yeah, I can only spot on. I can only speak from my experience, but I know that my experience has to be identical to so many other people's experience. And I know, and I know that so many people didn't have the experience that I did. A lot of people come into the movement and they don't get to be Indra Swami's secretary or Yashodanandan's secretary and meet people like Radha Kunda and have dinner with Tamal Krishna and work at ITV with Nrsingananda and meet Yadubara and all of these. I mean, I'm not trying to brag or nothing. I'm not trying to name drop. I'm just saying, you know, I've been around, and I just, not everybody gets that experience a lot. I mean, I was around the LA Temple for a long time, and I know a lot of people did not have the experience that I did. Absolutely not, especially the new people that come in. And freaking Bhakti Vikas Swami, also known as Hugh Turvey as well, for 2 years in India. And oh my goodness. So yeah, you write it, so you know firsthand. And I cut into you hugging a 16-year-old Indian girl in Durban in 1999. It was disgusting then. In 1999, that guy Indra Swami is probably one of the most disgusting people I've ever seen. The fact that he still has the nerve to sit there and be this guru guy and have his hands all over these little girls. It's absolutely friggin' disgusting. It is beyond disgusting. And the pictures of him and the videos of him parading around on the beach with all these girls in bikinis and little girls in bikinis. First of all, I don't think little girls should wear bikinis. Like there's a certain age, like under, I don't know, 8 or 9. There's a certain age where little girls should not wear bikinis. I don't think they should. I don't know. They should just wear like some kind of bathing suit, whatever. But hey, I'm not telling anybody how to raise your kid or parent. But I just think a bathing suit, like a bikini, a 2-piece bikini on a little girl is I think it's just a little. I don't know. I don't think it's appropriate. And he's got all these little girls in little bikinis. Now, a teenage getting up in age, I don't have a problem with it. But that's what I'm saying. There's a certain age where little girls, 6, 7 years old. I don't know. I don't know what age. I'm not sure what it is. But all I know is that the pictures of him with these little girls in these bikinis is, man, it's not what we consider acceptable behavior. At least not where I'm from. At least not in Culver City, California. So. Yeah. So it is. Let me see what happened here. I was having some internet problems earlier, so. So I wanted to play something else about this violence against women. So I'm going to get right into it. I got to get into this here.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. My initiated name is Harikanta Devidasi. My legal name is Olga Zemlyak. I was introduced to Krishna consciousness in 1999, and I was initiated by His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Goswami. For the last 6 years that I have been preaching and teaching Vaishnava courses, many Matajis turned to me with a complaint about immoral behavior of some men in ISKCON Russia. In this video, I will tell you about violence against women in ISKCON Russia by preachers and by its leaders. My goal is to warn women and identify the diseased part of the body of the ISKCON that needs treatment.
So this is part of the problem. Okay, this is a big part of the problem, is that she's experienced violence. She knows about violence. She knows about immoral behavior or whatever that's going on. She didn't grow up in the movement. She joined as an adult at a certain age. She joined, and she knows about this violence, whatever's going on. She's going to tell her story. She still is under the spell of this cult. She still says, glories to Prabhupada. I was initiated. She's still initiated. Obviously, she's wearing tilak and beads and a sari. She's traumatized. She's also brainwashed. She has Stockholm syndrome. I feel really bad for this girl. She wants to warn women, yet she's still in danger. The warning is, don't get involved with this cult. That's the warning. And is she really surprised at this cult, that there's violence against women in this cult, when the books say that women are less intelligent? Women like to be raped. Women have small brains. Women have to be subservient to men. Women have to be married before they're 16 years old to old grown men. That women should never be given freedom or independence or positions of authority. Prabhupada says there's 3 things that you can beat: a drum, a dog, and a woman. And you're going to sit there and say that, oh wow, there's violence in ISKCON? Well, no shit. Those teachings are violent enough. Those teachings, along with the fact that children have been abused, a $400 million lawsuit against 400 plus children who are abused all over the world, in schools all over, continue to be abused. Some of these kids, many of these kids, dozens of kids, have committed suicide as adults and as kids, because they couldn't deal with the trauma that this cult inflicted upon them. And you're in this cult, and you're trying to, what are you warning people? And why are you in this cult? So not only all the shit that I've been talking about, the murder of this devotee, the abuse in my family, my daughter being abused, all of that. And she got her own story. She got her own story. It's not like her story is the only story, or my story is the only story, or the guy who got shot in his van, his brains blown out, like his is the only story. Or the girl that was raped behind the festival by the singer and then went back. Like, that's not the only story. If those were the only story, these are not the only stories. Hers is not the only story. Fuck, everybody's got a story. I got a guy in my chat right now. He was the secretary of friggin' Indra Yumnaswamy. He got stories. He knows. He's probably traumatized by what he knows. Caught Indra Yumnaswamy hugging a 16-year-old Indian girl in Durban, South Africa in 1999. It was disgusting. It's probably freaked you out. Here you are, you're his assistant or whatever. Evidently you were, been around long enough. You worked your way up to where you were hanging out with swamis and, washing their socks or whatever you do when you're assistant. I never watched you showed his socks. I fixed his computer. And I booked his travel, and I helped publish his book, but I never washed his socks or anything like that. But I don't know what you did to get up to Indra Yumnaswamy and be his secretary. I don't know what you were doing, cooking his lunch, probably cooking his lunch. Probably, I don't know, maybe doing his laundry and washing his feet and doing all that. You probably heard him when he was pissed off. You probably heard him when he was bitching about this and that. You probably heard him talking shit about other gurus and other disciples. When I went to dinner with Tamal Krishna with these guys, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, this guy's a guru? This guy's the biggest prick I've ever met in my life. Here I'm thinking I'm going to have dinner. I knew that Tamal Krishna was some friggin' shady character. But I at least thought he was like some kind of... I was still under the delusion that he was some guru guy. He was like Tony Soprano. It was like having dinner with friggin' Tony Soprano. There's nothing spiritual about the guy. The guy was a friggin' fraud, fake phone. They all are. Some of them can just play it better than others. I can't believe girls and women are still joining into the cult for some weird fetish of fantasy. Exactly. And it bothers me because these women from Russia and these East European countries Ukraine and Russia and wherever, Kazakhstan or Lithuania or wherever, all these countries that were part of the Soviet Union, and when the Soviet Union fell, it was like all Hare Krishnas just ran into the in and set up shop, and they've been and they got these girls just like this joining, and I see these videos all the time, and they're all acting like they're all happy. These women are not happy. You can't fool me. Well, I know for a fact, because that one woman, she was always talking about how great her husband is, how great everything was, and meanwhile he's beating the fuck out of her every friggin' night. And finally she admitted it, probably to save her life or whatever. And I said, obviously, I knew something was up, because nobody talks about their husband that way. It was just too over the top. But that's how these wackos are. And they're wackos. I was one. I was just as wacky as
I want to make it clear in advance that I am not urging anyone to leave the movement or to give up spiritual practice. I myself follow sadhana and vows given on initiation, and remain faithful to Srila Prabhupada.
So I would love to talk to her and ask her, and I would say, why should I be faithful to Srila Prabhupada? What has he done? He created a bunch of fake, bogus gurus. He wasn't able to see that these guys were full of shit. After spending 10, 11 years with these guys, he couldn't figure out who Bhavananda and Kirtananda was, and Tamal and Satsrup, and Hridayananda. Probably wasn't smart enough to figure out that he's got a bunch of fucking freaks, a bunch of fucking degenerate freaks. Hansaduda. Probably wasn't smart enough to see that. Oh, but they talk about him like, oh, Prabhupada could look into your eyes, and he could look into your soul, and he couldn't do shit. He put Kirtananda in charge. He put friggin' Rameshwar in charge, and Harikesh freaks. Prabhupada's responsible for that. Prabhupada created that school. Prabhupada had no business creating a school. What educational experience does Prabhupada have creating a goddamn boarding school where you're going to put all these little kids in a school and put a bunch of friggin' degenerate hippies in charge who themselves have no school experience, teaching experience? Prabhupada was a failure at everything he ever tried to do, including being a guru. He was a big, fat fucking failure at everything. In the union, I was organizing all his daily meetings, puja, travel arrangements, bhakti visas. And I was like, he's better. Yeah, so that's what I was like that for Yashoda. I was doing all his computer work, his anytime there was anything wrong with his computer or set it up or anything like that, I was doing paperwork and filings and anything he didn't want to do, I was doing it. And in the name of service. It's all a bunch of bullshit. Typing his books and lots of stories. Your sister and brother-in-law. Man, you know, well, I'm glad you came to your senses. You got out. It looks like you got out. These I don't know, I forgot what I was going to say, but I do want to finish up. I do want to so I don't know if a lot of you out there are aware of this Paranjan guy who is one of the biggest mentally ill cult members of all time. He runs a webpage where he documents all the craziness of the Hare Krishna cult, but he's unaware that he himself is one of these crazy Hare Krishna people. He doesn't get it. And I've got my issues with him because he tried to smear me and do like a character assassination on me when I was leaving the cult, as if I cared about my reputation within a cult that I was leaving. I mean, it makes no sense. But the fact that he attempted to do all of this and was doing all of this, and on top of that, I was getting death threats and other issues when I was trying to leave this cult because I was living in the community. It didn't make it any better. So I have my issues with this guy, but I do have to commend him that he does document everything. He makes my job easier because he keeps tabs on what they are doing. So I give him that. So this is his webpage, and this is him talking about Hare Krishna, and I'm gonna comment on some of the things that he has to say. Here you go.
So a number of devotees have requested me to write a book, and I decided it's just not going to be possible for me to write a book, so I'm going to make an audio book, and maybe it can be transcribed later on, who knows. But I thought if I gave my life history, it would help people understand how I came to be, let's say, the black sheep whistleblower of the Krishna religion. So people wonder how I came to this position in the first place, and I don't think they really understand my history and really the history of ISKCON. So I'm kind of like an eyewitness to all this history, and I think it's important for people to realize what happened, because, as Madhvacharya says, those who understand history, the itihasa, they are eligible for liberation.
Okay, I do have to mention that this guy is so full of himself. First of all, nobody's asked him to write a book. I mean, maybe somebody came along and said, "Hey, you should write a book," but it's not like nobody's asking him to publish a book or anybody wants to publish his book. He just likes to hear himself talk, and he just wants to be the, like, as he says, the whistleblower of ISKCON. But how can you be the whistleblower of an institution or a cult that you are simultaneously advocating people to join? How can you have it both ways? How can you say, hey, this cult does all these bad things, but we still want you to join, but just join and hang out with the good people? Hey, you're welcome, and come back anytime, man. I want to make it a community, and your knowledge and what you know is definitely be beneficial to the community, and everyone needs to everyone needs to hear from as many people as they can. So just like this Paranjan guy, he says he's the whistleblower of ISKCON, and yet he continues to advocate that people join, but just join his way, which doesn't make any sense. So you're either a whistleblower or you're an advocate. You can't be both. You can't have it both ways. He wants to have it both ways.
So we need to know the history of how ISKCON came to be where it is now, and how I became, let's say, a thorn in the side of this current status quo of modern day ISKCON, or corporate ISKCON, or the institution known as ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So I wanted to start out with some of my early history, because I think that will show people how I had certain ideas that developed in my early history of being part of ISKCON and being associated with Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, and how that shaped my ideas for later on.
He is so full of himself that I can't hardly take this.
Becoming a critic of the direction ISKCON was going in. So I wanted to start with my earliest history and just roughly or briefly go over that so we can get some perspective on how I came to be who I am now. So first of all, my first encounter with Krishna was actually in a hippie shop in Los Angeles. It was a shop that sold marijuana, paraphernalia, that type of thing. So they were called hippie shops in those days. So I went into one of these shops and I saw a picture on the wall, and it was actually Krishna with his hand up in the air, and there was a cow. He was like blessing a cow in this picture. And so I right away was attracted, and I asked the young lady running the shop, who is that? And she really had no idea. So I think possibly I had some previous connection to Krishna, because right away I saw this figure which seemed oddly familiar or important to me. So later on, I was driving down Sunset Boulevard, and I saw a small group of Hare Krishna devotees chanting on the side of the street. There was only maybe 20 people at the most, and there was women dressed in saris, men with shaved heads wearing robes, and I immediately stopped, and I didn't know what it was, honestly, but I did have this feeling.
Okay, I had no idea he was going to do this. Excuse me. I had no idea he was going to do this, but and this is typical of Hare Krishna, of the Hare Krishna Cult and Hare Krishna Cult members, is their story. Everyone has a story. How they first time they got a book, first time they saw Hare Krishna, first time they saw Krishna or Prabhupada, it's like, oh my goodness, it's like the stars lined up and the heavens opened and his hand came down and it gave me, it's God, it's so embarrassing, because of course I had my story. The guy that gave me the book, he had his story. Everybody's got their story about how they got this book or they got this picture or I turned the corner and there the Hare Krishnas were all, and I was like, oh, what's this? And it was a sign from God or whatever. Everybody's got a story. And, if you think about it, everybody has a story about everything. Everybody has stories about everything. It's not these stories, it's not that big a deal. Who cares You walked into a hippie shop. Yeah, you went in to buy some rolling papers. You saw a picture of Krishna. You walked out. You went down Sunset Boulevard. You saw some Hare Krishnas were dancing. And you took that as some kind of a sign or something. So what? Who cares? Okay, so let me just say this. Let me just say this. It sounds like this guy, and I don't know him that well. I know him from around. I wasn't his assistant, but I know who he is, and I did my share of talking to him in Los Angeles. But you know, it just. I don't even want to talk about. I don't even want to say what I was going to say. All right, I'm going to go ahead and say it. This guy was a friggin' hippie. He was walking around Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard, in the 60s, because the LA Temple on La Cienega was like 1969, 68 or 69. So this guy's like a teenager, you know, probably 18, 19 years old, maybe 20, something like that. Walking around Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard, walks into a friggin' hippie shop. He calls it a hippie shop. Walks into a head shop. He went in to get some papers or a pipe or something to smoke some pot. And he saw a picture of Krishna or whatever, and was like, "Oh, what was that?" So what? Then he sees him on the street. I'll get to you in a minute. So he joins. So he sees him on the street. They come to the temple. He goes to the temple. He says, "I want to move in." Who does that? High school dropout, college dropout, it's a guy who's got no job, no future, no anything. He just smokes pot for a living on Hollywood Boulevard. That's who this guy was. And now he's some spiritual guy. Fuck him. What does this guy have to say? Okay, tell me what you think, Prabhu, is wrong with chanting donations for food for life, living a pure, healthy lifestyle, changing people's lives. Okay, well, first of all, you don't change anyone's lives. You harm people's lives. You're a destructive cult. And this is what's wrong with it. You preach that women are less intelligent and have small brains, and that women like to be raped. Your guru, your Prabhupada, your Prabhu fraud, who snorted snuff every night, who couldn't follow his own 4 regulative principles, who makes up shit in his own mind and says, "Oh, you can't do this or can't do that." Yet he can do whatever the fuck he wants? Fuck that. Who the fuck is he? He's snorting snuff every night. He believes in these mythological stories because that's what he grew up in. He wants me to believe that a friggin' demon head is eating the moon when there's an eclipse. That there's an elephant orbiting the flat earth to keep it from spinning out of control. That's what you want me to believe, that shit? That Krishna plays a flute and the sound of the flute goes into the ear of a four-headed guy that's growing on a flower out of the stomach of a four-armed guy who's laying on a snake that's his brother, who's laying on an ocean of milk or sweat? You want me to believe that shit? So you can convince me that women are less intelligent? The women like to be raped? Women have small brains? You want me to worship a man that says that black people belong in the jungles? Should never have been given freedom? That civil rights was wrong? Abraham Lincoln was wrong for freeing the slaves? You want me to worship this guy as some kind of a pure... He's not a pure anything. He's a pure piece of shit is what he is. He built a school where kids went in and were molested friggin' wholesale. He put Kirtananda in charge of a whole community where he's just molesting boys left and right. His gurus, his 11 gurus conspire to kill a guy in his van 5 blocks from my house. Shoot him in the head because somebody said that he was a demon and demons can be... That's what this cult is. And you're going to sit there and talk about how they give donations for food for life? Let's talk about the guys that killed the guy in the van. The fuck is that? Where was his food for life? Where is the food for life for the 25 kids that committed suicide because they grew up in this friggin' cult, tortured and sexually abused and raped every day? And then the cult just spits them out and doesn't give a fuck about them. Where is their food for life? Where is the food for life for the little girl that was raped behind the stage and then her mother marries her off to some guy in India so he can take her to India and rape her until he's done with her, and then she can end up wandering the streets of Mumbai at 16 years old? Where was her food for life? Fuck you and your food for life. Dancing and chanting. Meanwhile, women are being abused, children are being abused. Guy gets his brains blown out in a van. And the people responsible are still running the friggin' cult. The people responsible are still in charge. All the guys that had something to do with the murder of that devotee are still running the fucking cult. And you're going to sit there and talk about food for life? What the fuck? There's a lot of places that feed hungry people. They're not shooting people in the van because some weirdo self-proclaimed guru says that somebody's a demon. Oh, so now just because some guru says that somebody's a demon, they can it's open season? You probably one of the guys that thinks that yeah, if a guru says that you're a demon, I can go kill you. You're probably one of these people that believes that. These people are fucking insane. He's talking about food for life. I'm talking about little kids being abused, raped. Prabhupada was a fraud. Prabhupada's responsible for all of this bullshit, for all of this trauma. For every bit of it, Prabhupada's responsible for it. He's even responsible for that guy getting his head chopped off. Because if he hadn't met Prabhupada, he never would have been brainwashed into thinking that he was a guru and he could just fuck whoever he wanted and he didn't give a shit. And then the guy came and said, "You fucked my wife, I'm chopping your head off." Well, you know, if the guy hadn't met Prabhupada, he'd probably still have his head. And you're going to sit there and talk about food for life. Where's his life? A pure, healthy lifestyle. Where was the pure, healthy lifestyle for Salochan, who got his head shot brains blown out on Canfield Avenue. Well, where's his food for life? These fucking freaks, man. They don't know, and they need to know. And if they don't know, that's on them, because it's on them for not knowing if they don't know. When I joined, there was no internet. There was no internet. There was no Google. Yahoo was brand new, and you couldn't find shit on Yahoo because there was nothing on the internet. There was nothing. I know, because I went on, I was looking. I was like, where's Hare Krishna? Where's Prabhupada? Where's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Where's Vyasadeva? And where are the Vedas? And where's Bhagavad Gita? And there was nothing. There was nothing there because there was no internet. Now, everything's on the internet. The good, the bad, the ugly, the bullshit. If nothing else, you got me. There's no reason why people don't know. Lawsuits. There was no lawsuit when I joined. There was no lawsuit. I didn't know about Salochan's murder when I joined. Yeah, I didn't know about the. I heard all the shit that I heard from people, from Radhakunda Das, and from Janardana, and from Bir Lakshman, and from Yashodanandan, and from Sri Maya, and Lokamangala, and Bhargava. And all these devotees that I was just that I would just run into and meet. And they would tell me stuff. And they weren't telling me stuff like they were telling me stuff like, oh, I'm telling you. They were just telling me, yeah, back in the day, man. Back in the day, we used to do this, we used to do that. Yeah, back in the day, we'd go down to the beach. Yeah, back in the day. Oh, and they'd be just telling me stories. And then, you put two and two together. And then I would hear about all these old timers, and I'd hear these stories, and Sudama, and stories about Sudama, and stories about I don't even remember, and Vishnu John, and all kinds of stories. I would hear. I wasn't finding out on the internet. I was hearing this firsthand from people who were there. People who were there with Sudama. People who were there with Tamal Krishna. People who were there with these devotees. Paranjan. This guy talking, Paranjan used to put on a sari and traipse around the LA temple like he was a gopi. And now he's going to sit there and talk about he's a whistleblower, and he knew from the beginning this and that, and now he's the savior of the. Yeah, there was a time when you were putting on a sari and traipsing around the temple like you were a gopi. Not everybody knows about that. He doesn't talk about that. That's one scandal you won't find on his webpage. He'll tell you everything about everybody, all the bullshit, and if there is no bullshit like with me, he'll make it up. Oh, Sri Mukunda was seen talking with so-and-so at the LA temple. I wasn't talking to anybody. Oh, Sri Mukunda was doing this and Sri Mukunda was doing that. Sri Mukunda is not doing any of that. Oh, Sri Mukunda is with these people and he's with those people. They just make shit up. Just like Prabhupada making shit up. You can't eat chocolate. You can't smoke cigarettes. Meanwhile, he's doing snuff. He doesn't want you having sex He doesn't want you falling in love with a woman because he didn't know how to fall in love with a woman. He never had a loving relationship with a woman. He didn't know how to raise kids or have a loving relationship with his children. So then he puts in his books, family is not real. Your mother and father aren't real. Your children are not real. This is all a bunch of bullshit. From top to bottom, left to right, east to west, north, south, it's all bullshit. And these guys come in, oh, what's wrong with this and what's wrong? I'll tell you what's wrong with it. These guys are full of shit. And you're promoting it. Fake it till you make it. By hook or by crook. By hook or by crook. Sell them a book. And that's basically fake it till you make it. It's the same thing as fake it till you make it. I'd been a devotee for 15 years. I'm hanging around with these Shodanandan. I'm hanging around with all these characters. All this stuff. I've read all the books. I've read every book multiple times. I did not feel qualified to sit and give a lecture. I've never given one friggin' lecture ever. No Sunday feast lecture. No empty temple room lecture. I've never given like because I've never thought that I deserved to sit on that seat and sit there and lecture anybody about anything. Even though I knew all the philosophy, I knew all the stories, I knew all the Bhagavad Gita and the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. I knew all the stories. Nectar of devotion. Science of self-realization. Everything. All the little books, all the big books. I read it all. I never felt that I should be the one to sit on the seat and give a lecture. Ever. But guys are coming in, they've been hanging around for 2 months and they're sitting, oh, I'm going to sit here and let's read from Bhagavad Gita, and he's going to start, and then he's going to start telling stories about, yeah, well, when I first came, and I'm just like, who the fuck? What the fuck? This is not some game. Spiritual life is not some game. Prabhupada talks about how spiritual life is serious, and it's, spiritual life this, spiritual life this, and what, you're going to put some teenage kid who's been reading Bhagavad Gita for 2 weeks, and you can put him on the Vyasa, and he's going to give a lecture to me? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And if I don't feel like if I don't feel qualified to sit there and lecture these people, lecture a bunch of people, how the fuck does he feel qualified if he's only been coming around for 2 months? I've been around for 15 years. This is not a game. You're going to sit there and read from Bhagavad Gita and try to impart some realization to me? No offense or anything, but I mean, come on. Come on. Seriously. That's like me walking into St. Augustine's Church in Culver City and walking up to the priest and going, "Hey, move over. Let me handle this. Let me handle this mass." You know what? Prabhupada respected women and followed strict rules. Teachings are ancient wisdom. First of all right, let me just get you right here. First of all, this ain't ancient wisdom. This shit is not ancient. It's not ancient, dude. The Bhagavatam, 1,000 years old. Okay? 1,000 years old. Bhagavad Gita, a little bit older. It's not thousands of years. There was no Vedic civilization that Prabhupada talks about. There was no palaces and Kamsa's castle and all of this crap, man. This is not ancient wisdom. No ancient wisdom. It's not, miss. Come on. You think there's a four-headed guy sitting growing out of a flower on a four-armed guy? Seriously, you think there's a demon head eating the moon? Seriously. You really believe that? That there's a demon head eating the moon? And that there's a four-armed guy laying on a snake with all these heads, and that's really his brother? You really believe that? You really believe that? Well, if you believe that, then you believe that Prabhupada respected women. Prabhupada had no respect for women. He said women can have no positions of responsibility in his movement. They cannot be gurus. They cannot be temple presidents. They cannot do anything. They cannot have any responsibility. He said women must be under the care of a man at all times in their lives. Their father, and then their husband, and then their son-in-law or their son. Women are never to be given independence. He says women don't even need to go to school. He says women don't even need to learn anything. They just need to cook and clean and make some clothes. And that's it. So how is that respect for women? That's not respecting women. So don't give me that bullshit. Prabhupada did not respect women. He said women are less intelligent. He said women like to be raped. So how is that respecting women? So you can just fuck off with that bullshit. It's not ancient wisdom, for one. He probably had no respect for women, 2. 3, it is just myths because there's no demon head eating the moon. You're a fucking fool for thinking that. A goddamn fool. Demon head eating the moon. God, it just blows my mind how these people can be so fucking dense. This guy's telling me to check his books. I just sat here and said I've read every fucking book more times than fucking God. I was in the fucking movement for 20 goddamn years. I read every fucking book there is multiple times. Been to India 10, 11 times. I've been to friggin' almost every major temple in Vrindavan and then some. And this guy's telling me that I need to read the books and check the truth. This bullshit blows my goddamn mind. It blows my mind. Like I'm sitting here like I don't know what I'm talking about. Blows my mind. Don't forget that by joining this kind, you'll be liberated 10 generations in the past and the future. Well, not only that, but I've spent, it says in the books that if you do devotional service, you're guaranteed. If you take prasadam, you're guaranteed a human birth. If you spend 2 weeks in Vrindavan, you're guaranteed to go back to the spiritual world. I spent 2 weeks. I've spent more than 2 weeks in Vrindavan. Am I guaranteed to go back to the spiritual world? It says guaranteed. I'm guaranteed. Radhakunda told us that he said it's like getting a backstage pass. He says like getting a backstage pass. You're in. You don't have to worry. You don't have to stand in line. You don't have to. You don't have to ask. You got a backstage pass to the spiritual world. Goloka Vrindavan, you're in. 2 weeks. 2 weeks in Vrindavan. Boom. You have a backstage pass to Goloka Vrindavan. So I got a backstage pass to Goloka Vrindavan. I don't have to worry about anything. And that's according to your books. You told me to check my books. He said, what did he say? He said, check the books so you'll find the truth, right? So that's in the books. According to your books. So it's a bunch of bullshit. This guy's going to tell me to check the books like I don't know what's in the books. Amazing. Two months of bootlegging will have you promoted to do that. Yeah. I seen it with my own eyes. I saw a guy at the LA temple. He was in high school. He was like a senior in high school. He came to the temple. He had his long hair. He was like a hippie. He was like a skater hippie guy. This is right before I checked out. And this guy comes to the temple with his high school class. He's like this class of 15 kids. And they all come. And he stood out because he had this he was like this one long hair. He was like this long haired hippie dude, the skater dude, whatever. Cool guy. And me and a friend of mine, we see him and we're like, oh, look at those kids. The next week, he's back. And we're like, oh, skater kid is back. The long hair kid is back. And he kept coming back. He kept coming back like 3 or 4 more times. We saw him. And then one day we saw him and it wasn't a Sunday. It was just like a day during the week, a Wednesday. And he's there. And he's hanging out. And just like me. I mean, it's the same thing that I went through. That's how I got into it. Went to the temple and went back. And Sunday feast, Sunday feast, Sunday feast. And then I went up there when it wasn't a Sunday feast to see what's it like when it's not Sunday. And that's what this kid did. And then one day we see him. And he's coming back. Sunday feast and then during the week. And then we see him, he's going out on Sankirtan. He's in the van. They got him in the van. He's going out to Venice Beach, Sankirtan. Next thing you know, shaved up. Shaved up. That's how they get him. Did he know? How much do you learn in that short amount of time? How much do you learn in that short amount of time? How many books did he read in 2 months? Did he read the Lilamrita, 7-volume Lilamrita? Did he read the Chaitanya Charitamrita? Did he read the Bhagavatam? Did he read the Krishna book? Did he read the Bhagavad Gita? Science of Self-Realization? Nectar of Devotion? Nectar of Instruction? Easy Journey to Other Planets? Did he read all those books in the 2 months before he shaved his head? Mr. Dubay, I suppose you're an activist. Come on, Dubai. Take your sorry story. We were inside this cult. We're fortunate that we've escaped that cult. We are fortunate. We're very fortunate that we have escaped because a lot of people can't escape. They're stuck in there, and it's really sad to see that people are stuck in the cult. They can't get out. You know, in RiskCon, they time travel to liberate your ancestors, and then the next gen sure beats that movie Back to the Future. Yeah, you know, I guess it's all about, you know, the afterlife, what goes on in the afterlife, you know, getting to Goloka Vrindavan. Do you become a gopi? Do you become a cowherd boy? You know, that rules and regulations, you know, what are you going to be thinking of at the time of death, you know, chanting at the time of death. Prabhupada's teaching, you know, that this is what's going to happen. This is going to happen to you. It's so death focused, you know, it's just like everything focusing on on the time of death and what happens after, and whether you make it to Goloka Vrindavan or you know, you come back and take another birth. It's just, everything is so, it's a death cult. It's everything's focused on the death, the death of everybody. Right on. Yeah. Oh, wait, let's see. I'm trying to get caught up, everybody. You can be spiritual without joining a cult. Well, we know that, but Prabhupada says you know, your spiritual life begins when you take initiation from a bona fide spiritual master. So they're brainwashed into thinking that there is no spiritual life without surrendering to a spiritual master. It's a symbolic story explaining eclipses, not literal. Since science explains eclipses today. Oh, so you don't believe what Prabhupada says when he says that these are not stories, that this is real. You don't believe that. You don't believe when Prabhupada says that these are not just stories? Because when he's asked, can we take these stories as symbolism, Prabhupada says, no, you cannot. He says you have to take these stories literally. These are not stories. So you don't believe Prabhupada when he says that? I'm confused, because I thought you were a follower of Prabhupada, because that's what we're talking about. ISKCON, Krishna cults, Srila Prabhupada's a pure devotee. I don't know if you're on the wrong page, wrong video. But if you don't believe that Prabhupada's a pure devotee and that Prabhupada can be wrong, and that these are not literal stories, then yeah, you're right. These are just stories. They're not true. None of it's true. The chanting is bullshit. The stories are bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's not a little bit true and a little bit bullshit, buddy. If it's symbolism and it's not real, then none of it's real. There's no Krishna playing a flute. There's no four-headed guy growing out of a flower. Right? There's no Krishna and cowherd boys and gopis. There's none of that. There's no Goloka Vrindavan. Right? There's no Rahu eating the moon. There's no Lord Rama and Sita. There's no Hanuman. There's no Lord Chaitanya. There's no pure devotee. There's no Srila Prabhupada. I mean, that's where we got to go. If we're going to follow this logically, the conclusion is that if these stories about Rahu and Krishna and Mahavishnu, if that's all stories, then the chanting is a story, and Vyasadeva is just a story. Bhagavad Gita is just a story. Kurukshetra is just a story. Lord Chaitanya is just a story. It's all just stories. Why do any of it? Why chant? Why give a donation for Food for Life? It's all just stories. I can donate to the March of Dimes. I can donate to the City of Hope. I can donate to children with disabilities. I can donate to the Shriners. I can donate to the Mayo Clinic and to all kinds of charities I can donate to. Why would I donate to ISKCON if it's all stories? If it's all stories, if you're admitting that it's all stories, let's see, what did you say? It's a symbolic story explaining eclipses. It's not literal. So then if that's, you decided that, so then they're all stories. They're all just stories. Why would that one just be a story? Then they're all stories. There's no Mohini. There's no churning of the ocean of milk and getting nectar. There's no Vishnu riding on Garuda. There's no Ganesh. There's no Shiva. I mean, we can't have. I mean, if Vishnu cut off Rahu's head and his head went into orbit and it eats the moon during an eclipse. Either that happened or it didn't. So if you're telling me that there is no Rahu head eating the moon, then that means that there was no Vishnu to cut off his head. That did not happen. There's no Vishnu. There's no Shiva. Right? There's no Mahavishnu laying on an ocean of milk. There's no Lord Chaitanya, Nitai, Nityananda, Chaitanya, Nityananda. There's none of that, right? There's no six Goswamis. It's all stories. Because if that's what you believe, then we can just cut to the chase and we can just end it right here. It's all stories, which is what I've been saying all along. Basically, you agree with me. It's all stories. It's not real. It didn't really happen. There is no Rahu god, Rahu head eating the moon. There's no Mahavishnu. There's no ocean of milk. None of that. So why would I donate to your charity? Why would I chant and dance in front of a statue? Offer flowers to a statue. I might as well sit at home and offer flowers to a Barbie doll. Offer my meal to a Barbie doll. Ken and Barbie. I could put Ken and Barbie up. I could set up a Ken and Barbie doll. Dress them up. And I cook my meal, and then I can offer my meal to Ken and Barbie. Makes as much sense as to offer it to a statue of Radha and Krishna. Because as you just said, it's not real. It's not real. It's just a symbolic story explaining eclipses. It's not literal. So since it's just a symbolic story explaining eclipses, then the statues of Radha and Krishna is just a symbolic representation of an imaginary person. It's not real. It's not literal. Even though Prabhupada says that statue is Radha and Krishna, you're saying that it is not. Prabhupada says that is Rahu eating the moon, and you're saying it's not. So you're in complete conflict with Prabhupada. And I don't know how you resolve that. But, I agree with you. It's all bullshit. Prabhupada's all bullshit. These stories are all bullshit. There was no battle of Kurukshetra. There was no Vedic civilization. There's none of that. There was no palace, 16,000 wives. There was no Rasa dance down by the river where Krishna's having sex with a bunch of little 11-year-old girls. Didn't happen. None of that happened. Hold my japa beads and go mookie bag. Yeah, it's so funny because they believe all of these stories. They just believe them all. And the crazier the story, the more they believe it. The more they believe it. And when you put it to this guy, Athartha Dubey, whatever his name is, he's going to say, no, it's just a symbolic. Well, that's not what Prabhupada says. So I don't know where he's getting his information from. But Prabhupada says these are not stories. These are not stories. He says it over and over in his books. These are not stories. So I'm gonna finish up with this story. I'm gonna tell a story. It's not a story. I'm gonna relate an event because this really happened. So when I was in India, this is like 2004. 2004, I'm in India with Yashodanandan and my nephew and Yashodanandan's son. Oh, wait a minute. What does this guy have to say? Symbolic meaning. Within literal truth, Prabhupada rejected reducing scripture to only symbolism, but he acknowledged that additional layers of meaning can exist without denying the literal truth. So I don't know what you're saying. I don't know what you're saying, but I've read every book of Prabhupada's multiple times. And Prabhupada says that these stories are literally true. They are not symbolic. They are not symbolism. They are the truth. They are the absolute truth. As he says, it's an offense to consider them to be mythology or symbolism. When Prabhupada says that the deity of, what is it, Sakshi Gopal? The deity that walked from wherever to wherever, the witness, Sakshi Gopal, the witness deity that walked. You believe that deity walked from wherever it was to Vrindavan? Prabhupada says it walked. You believe it walked? Prabhupada says these are not stories. He says it's offensive to think that these are stories. And now here you're going to sit there and say that these are not, that Prabhupada rejected reducing scriptures to only symbolism. Okay, it's not only symbolism. He rejected it to be symbolism in any way. He said these are not stories. So if you're going to reject the fact that these stories are, that Prabhupada says, if you say that Prabhupada does not believe that these are factual, then you're rejecting Prabhupada. You cannot reject Prabhupada and be a good disciple of Prabhupada. You have to accept what Prabhupada says, and Prabhupada says that these are not stories, that these are histories, these are literal, these are facts, these are facts. He says it so many times. Prabhupada says, there really is a Krishna and he's playing a flute. It's not symbolism. It's not symbolism that Vishnu is laying on Nagasesh, Anantasesha, or whatever. That's not a story. That's not a symbolism. Prabhupada says that's actual heaven. Universes are coming out of his body. It's not symbolism. Mr. Dubey, perhaps you have forgotten to snuff today. Yeah, well, what it is it's like deprogramming. It's like he's being hit with the truth. And so he's got to say, no, it's not literally, but it is, but it isn't, but it is, but it isn't. Because he's stuck. It's a conundrum. It's like does not compute. It's like that Star Trek. What did they say? They had cyborg deities, Sakshi Gopal from Atlantic, which walks. It's the truth. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it is a Sakshi Gopal. So it's not only at night to read it. Yeah. They see when they're confronted with the truth. See in the old deprogramming days, they would take a guy like Athartha. What is his name? Atharva, and they would lock him in a motel, and a guy would sit there and go, well, what's wrong with you? These are, you believe there's a demon eating the moon, ocean of milk. What are you talking about? Are you crazy? And they would just get at him until they would break him. You can't take it anymore because the brain can't handle it. The brain can only handle it because he's got the freedom to say, oh, well, it's this. And then I reply, and then he goes, no, it's that. He's got the freedom to. But if we were in a room together and it was like his family, and a psychologist, Dr. Phil or something, and he couldn't leave, and he was forced to face the facts, face the truth, and say, is there a demon eating the moon? Do you believe that? And then show him in Prabhupada's books where it says in Prabhupada's books that this is a fact. It's eating the moon. And then eventually his brain would break. He'd go, you're right. It's not. There is no demon eating the moon. You're right. But as long as he has the freedom to just turn off his computer or walk away from the keyboard or do whatever, then he's never going to get to that moment. He's never going to get to that moment where his brain is going to go, God damn it, you're right. He's got the freedom to just turn it off and go, walk away. He's got the freedom to do that. So as long as he can sit there and go, the symbolic meaning within literal truth, Prabhupada rejected reducing scripture to only symbolism, but he acknowledged that additional layers of meaning can exist without denying the literal truth. So I don't know what he's trying to say in that. Because if you work backwards, what he's saying is, the last thing he says is, all this other stuff that I'm going to say, that I've said, doesn't deny the literal truth. So what he's saying is that all the symbolism and all the other stuff that you want to talk about doesn't deny the literal truth. So what Dubé is actually saying is that it is literal, but we can take it as symbolism too. But why? It's literal. If a demon head is literally eating the moon, what does the symbolic meaning have to do with anything? There's a demon head eating the moon. Well, the demon head eating the moon symbolizes evil over... I don't care what it symbolizes. There's a literal demon head eating the moon. But the symbolism, I don't care about symbolism. There's a demon head eating the moon. Literally. Literally. What does your symbolism have to do with something that's literal? Now, if you say it has symbolic meaning because there is no literal truth, it's all symbolism. You say, okay, then there's no demon head eating the moon. saying there's a demon head eating the moon is symbolic of something else eating something else. But if you literally have a demon head eating the moon, there's no symbolism there. It's literally eating the moon. We need to bring back old school deprogramming. Well, you know what? I wish we could. You know, it's almost like having someone committed, right? In order to have someone committed, you have to have like a doctor's note. You have to have like a family member. You have to have like a referral. You have to have like all these things. And then a judge can go, yeah, let's put this guy in a mental institution. You got to have all this criteria before a judge will even look at you. It's not like you can't just go, hey, lock this guy up, he's crazy. Same thing with deprogramming. You should be able to say, hey, look, my husband was normal, and then he joined the Hare Krishnas, and then he shaved his head, and now he believes this demon head is eating the moon, and he thinks going to India and milking a cow, and he thinks this, and he does this, and he wipes his ass with his hand, and then a judge can look at all of these things and go, yeah, let's deprogram this guy, and then they order, court ordered deprogramming. I think that's totally viable. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's actually a pretty good idea. I think that would save a lot of people. Without independent, analytical, and critical thinking, the gullible are simply herded like cattle. Yeah, and you know what? It's not, the word gullible is the one that gets me, because I don't think that you have to be gullible to join a cult. You just have to have an open mind, and the cult will do the rest. It's not necessarily being gullible. It's being, maybe, I don't know if gullible is the right word, but definitely, you have to have an open mind, and you have to kind of be, I don't know, off guard. But I don't know about being gullible. I don't know about being naive or gullible or uneducated, or it's kind of like, it reminds me of what John Wayne says. John Wayne said once, he said, life is hard, but it's harder if you're stupid. And so I think joining a cult is kind of like that. Like, you don't have to be stupid to join a cult, but it doesn't hurt. And you don't have to be gullible to join a cult, but it doesn't hurt. So you don't have to be anything to join a cult. And that's why when if you look at a cult, you'll have, there's respectable people in the cult. There'll be like doctors and lawyers and maybe a policeman, or respectable people that are in a cult. And you go, I remember it was like when I joined the Hare Krishnas, when I got in the Hare Krishnas, and I was like, I would meet Hare Krishnas. This one guy he ran a friggin', he ran a business downtown. He had like a whole factory, like a furniture business. And he was the head. And you know who that was? That was the old temple president of the LA temple. And I want to say his name was Bharat, or he was married to Crota Shamani. But anyway, so when he would come to the temple all dressed, in his, because he was like the business, he was like a business guy. He was like the owner of this company. So he was always dressed up like he was the owner of a company. But he'd come to the LA temple because he was the old temple president. I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name. But I did a video project for him. But anyway, and he's like this business guy. He's got an office, and he's got this factory, and he's got this office. He's like the owner of this, CEO of this furniture company. And I was like, oh, and you're I didn't know he was the temple president. But I guess he was the temple president under Rameshwar or something. But anyway, I was like, oh, you're like a businessman guy, you know? And then this other devotee was a doctor at UCLA. This woman, somebody's wife, was a doctor at UCLA or something. And I was like, oh, you know, they got, you know, it's not like a bunch of, you know, doofuses running around here. Well, they are, but because that's not success in life, or your position, your employment position, and all these things are not a indicator of whether you're going to join a cult or not. Anybody can join a cult. George Harrison joined a cult. Boy George, Tom Cruise, John Travolta, so many people join cults. It has nothing to do with status or intelligence or whether you're gullible. I mean, gullible definitely, that's one. Like, if you're a gullible person, I mean, you're gullible. Self-explanatory. Mr. Dubé, consider yourself a very special soul that you've joined us here at the mic. The truth exploded. It's your freaking chance to get out of the cult chains. Yeah, you know, maybe you know, there's some small cracks that appear, because that's how it happens. Small cracks appear. You go, oh, that doesn't make sense. Oh, and that doesn't make sense. And then pretty soon these cracks, they become fissures, and they open up, and then everything shatters eventually. But at first, you know, you get a little crack, you try to patch it up. You go, oh no, wait, that's not right. You know, oh, well, yeah, I know he's a dick, but I know, did he really molest a kid? Can you prove it? You know, there's different stages of, you know, of realization, you know, denial, you know, bargaining, whatever. There's all these different stages that you go through. So, and it's never easy. And so, and I went through it. I definitely went through it. It was a difficult time. It's not like you can just get up and I mean, you want to just get up and walk out, but I mean, life is not that easy. It's not like you just get up and walk. It's like breaking up with a girlfriend or getting a divorce. It's not that. It's like, there's steps. there's things you got to go through. You don't just, you know, it just doesn't end and everything's hunky dory. It's like there's periods of uncertainty, and then, you know, real uncertainty, you know, and maybe even, you know, terror, horror, anger, and, you know, and shame and embarrassment and humiliation. There's all these different things that are going on. So it's never an easy thing. So, but yeah, I agree. You're fortunate that you stumbled in here, and that maybe you'll hear the truth. We're not just people that like don't know what we're talking about. Like, and that's funny. Like, I'm someone like, and I understand. Someone comes in there, they look at me, they go, "Who's this guy? Who's this guy talking about Krishna consciousness?" Well, yeah, I'm that guy talking about Krishna consciousness. And you want to know about Krishna consciousness? I'll tell you about it. So, yeah, it is your lucky day if you're watching on the replay. You can see how the cult mind works. And that's one of the reasons why I like to do this, where I can get response, because I know the Hare Krishnas will come in here and they will expose. I know all the arguments. I know all the things to say. I mean, those of us that have been in it and have left, we know the thought processes. We know the arguments that they make. We know the way they rationalize, the way they critique, the way they examine. We know what filter they're looking through. We looked through it. We know exactly how their brain is working, how the cult brain works. We know how Prabhupada's working. And some of us, we know better than they. And I'm not saying I know it all. I'm not saying I know. I mean, but I do, you know, I have to say, I watch some of these cult people on TV, some of these cult experts, and some of these Hare Krishna cult experts. And some of them really good. They know a lot of shit, and they're on the ball. There's like 2 or 3 that they know what's up, and then there's some that, you know, I don't know if they're still Hare Krishnas or not. I don't know where their heads are at. 1 minute they're talking shit about Hare Krishna. Next minute there still sounds like they're in it, and a lot of them don't really know. They really don't know a lot of the details. I've seen so many videos where people are talking about how they left Hare Krishnas, but they don't know. They don't explain why. They don't want us to explain why, or they don't know why, or they have some other reasons why. So I think that I do have a unique experience, a unique story, a unique history, and I'm willing to share it. And I think the idea, the thing that makes me stand out is that I am willing to share my story with everyone, and as a warning for those that may get involved, that may know someone who's involved, maybe thinking about getting involved, or just wants to know more about it. So I just want to say thank you everybody for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please tune into other videos and watch out, and I will be making more videos. I've been having some internet problems. Obviously, I had some internet problems earlier in the show, but I've tried to do this more regularly so I can combat all the Hare Krishna videos that pop up every single day out there. So once again, thanks everybody. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'll leave you with this outgoing video. Bye, everybody.